folks, it's Kyle Wilkinson. Today I'm doing another tying video. I'm actually redoing a video that I did before called the Hybrid Scud. Today I'm making the Hybrid Scud 2.0. A little better quality camera, talk to the process a little bit more. We'll post it up and you can see how I tie my scuds, primarily for fishing Rocky Ford. I'll talk through different colors and the way I tie them, and I hope you'll enjoy this video. It should be good. Now, this fly pattern has put a lot of fish in the net. Some of those fish include this one right here, and a couple more like this one here and here. So you can tell this fly puts a lot of really nice fish in the net. So for this video, I'll be tying the Hybrid Scud 2.0 on a size 14 scud hook. I'm going to be using a U-Series Umpqua size 14 U202. You can tie this scud in several different sizes. I tend to stick between 14 and 18, and I primarily fish a size 18 because I like that smaller size, but for purposes of the video so you can see the fly better, I will be tying on a size 14. So I have my size 14 scud hook in the vise. I'm going to go ahead and crimp this barb down because I don't like to have to mess with barbs when I'm on the water. I just want to tie my fly on and go. Give it a quick peek, that nubbing down. And if I'm on the water and I need to pinch that barb down a little more, I still have my pliers. Put that guy in the vise. I will then be using my lead-free wire. I like to use this 15 thousandths lead-free wire just because it's smaller. If I really want to get this heavy, I used to use heavier wire, but it made the fly a little too bulky. So I use the 15 thousandths now. I'm going to start in the back and I'm going to wrap forward with that weight, kind of bunch it together. You don't want to get too close to the back because you're going to have to be tying in your tail and finishing your scud back. And you want to tie it too close to the front because you can have the antenna sticking out the front and a little bit of scud back. So as we get through, you'll see what I mean. You want to leave a little bit of distance. Since this is a little bit bigger scud, I am going to counter wrap my lead-free wire just to add a little bit of bulk, not too much, and a little bit of extra weight. Go ahead and get to the back. And I'm just going to helicopter and pull that wire off. Then I'm going to be using some 8/0 olive unit thread. I love the smaller thread because I can put more thread wraps down. Makes the fly a little bit stronger. It makes it a little bit neater. You don't have some big bulky thread taking up your fly. I'm going to start in the back. I'm just going to make a thread base and tie it over that wire. I'm going to cut that thread. Oops. I'm going to take some olive schlappen feathers. And you can see here where I've been taking fibers off the stem. I'm just going to grab, about that many, maybe a dozen fibers. Pull them right off the stem. And while they're in my hands, I'm just going to twirl those fibers just like this. Because I want all those fibers to be pointing different directions. I don't want them all facing the same direction. So once I twist them a little bit, you want to keep the tips at the same length. And I'm just going to tie down those fibers on top of the hook. Now you can see here these fibers are a little too long, so I'm just going to pull these forward until I get that tail about the length I want, which is about right there. You want it so that these fibers, if you were to bend them down, they wouldn't quite reach the point of the hook, maybe to where the barb would be. So now I've got my tail tied in. I'm going to lay down these fibers to the front of the hook, and I'm just going to tie over the top of them, holding them down. Tie right back to the eye, wrap back to the back of the hook, and then you want your antenna to be about the same length as your tail fibers. Just trim those right off. So that's a good base to your fly. Now I'm going to take some 1/8 inch olive scud back. There we go.
Tie it going out the back of the fly. There we go. Leave it hanging out the back. For this fly, I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to tie it in olive and orange. Some of these scuds I'll tie all olive. Some of them I'll tie olive and orange. Sometimes I'll tie it all orange. It just kind of depends. Sometimes I'll tie it in light gray, dark gray, almost a white colored. It just kind of depends on the mood of the fish. So it usually takes a little bit in the morning to figure out what color they want, and then they're gonna be on that color all day. Generally, I'm fishing all olive, olive and orange, or all orange. In this video, I'll do the olive and orange. I also use several different types of dubbing for the scud. Today's video, I'll be using some olive hare's ear plus dubbing. I do have a little bit of problem with this, taking out big chunks of dubbing at a time, so I take out little tiny pinches like this, because I don't want to get those big clumps. I don't know if you can see that. I don't want those big clumps. So I'm just going to take out little tiny pinches at a time. If you do get those big clumps, it's not a huge deal. I just try to break them up. So I'm going to take a little bit of dubbing here. And I don't even wet my fingers or use wax. I just roll that onto my thread. And I'm going to start wrapping this forward. I'm going to keep that fairly tight on your thread. And you want to build it up. You don't want your scuds to be too thin, because when you counter wrap over the scud back, it won't make those nice indentations in the scud back to make it look like an actual scud. But you don't want it too bulky, because if it gets too bulky, then you're going to start getting in the way of that hook point. So I'm going to take some more of this dubbing, dub it on the thread. And don't worry about having pieces sticking out, having little stragglers. We're going to be cutting some of that down here in a minute. So building this scud up. Now I'm going to get about to the middle, and I'm going to take some Ice Dub UV Shrimp Pink. This stuff, I love it. This makes a little orange hot spot or a pregnant spot in the scud. If you stick your hand down in the weeds, you pull up a bunch of scuds, you'll see some of them with that orange spot. I think the fish key in on that because they see that, hey, that scud is pregnant. I don't know why they like the pregnant scud, but maybe it adds some more realism. I don't know. But to do that, I'm going to add this UV Shrimp Pink Ice Dub. The same thing as with that olive dubbing. I'm just going to take a pinch, and I'm going to wrap it around the thread, and I'm just going to wrap it around that middle. You want this portion to be fairly bulky because you do want that to stand out. Then I'm going to go back to my olive dubbing. Dub that on my line. And then I'm going to continue wrapping forward. And you want to keep it, you want to have a fairly tapered body. So you want to start out thin, get a little bit thicker right about the top where that middle section of orange UV or pink UV dubbing is, and then start tapering it back down. Too much. Just a little bit more here. That's good enough. So now I'm back to the front of my fly, right behind the eye. I'm going to take this olive scud back. I'm just going to lay it over the top, pull it fairly tight, not super tight, just snug. And then you're going to tie that in right behind that hook guy. Give it a few wraps, and then while the scud back is on the fly still, this tag end, I'm going to take my whip finish tool, and I'm just going to whip finish this real quick. Do like 2 or 3. Now I leave the scud back on because sometimes if you cut this off and then go to whip finish, sometimes it'll come unraveled, and now you just got that little tiny piece of scud back you got to work with, and it just becomes a mess. So If you leave the scud back tied on while you do that whip finish, if something were to go wrong and it comes unraveled, you just pull it back over and redo it. Because trust me, I've messed this up quite a few times. So I'm going to take this scud back tag, I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to go back through my whip finish tool. I'm going to put in another 3-4 whip finishes. So you got one more step left. Now, I think this, I've never fished a fly like this necessarily, but I think this would work just fine with that scud back over the top. But I like to add a little bit more realism, and I like to add segmentations. So once we have the line whip finished for the second time behind the hook eye, I'm going to do one more full wrap. Oops. I'm going to do one full wrap. And then as I'm coming around that back side underneath the fly, I'm going to wrap it up over the top, over that scud back, and I'm going to pull down tight. See how it makes a little bit of segmentation? I want to do that evenly spaced all the way back towards the back end of the fly. Just like so. And I think that creates a little bit of segmentation like you see in an actual scud. Going all the way back. And once I get to the back, I'm going to take my last wrap and have it go right behind the last part of dubbing, right at the base of the tail. Take several wraps of the thread, and then I'm going to do my whip finish tool over the entire fly on that same part of the base of the tail, and do 2 sets of 3, 4, 5 whip finishes. Usually get that snug. And you don't want to cut too close to the end. You don't want to cut too close to the base of the tail, excuse me, because that will make the fly come unraveled. And I don't fish a fly once my segmentation is gone. Sometimes after several fish, that thread on the back will tear. At that point, I just tie on a new fly. So I don't want this to come unraveled. I'm going to trim the rest of the thread about the length of the antenna. And you're almost done. I'm taking my fancy, super expensive dubbing brush, popsicle stick wrapped with electrical tape, super fancy, and a piece of Velcro on the end of it. Super expensive, super rare. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to flip my fly. I'm going to kind of point it towards you because you want to grab those fibers with your Velcro or whatever your dubbing brush is. Grab from the bottom and pull up and out. Just pulling up and out from that side, and then you're going to brush the other way. So that initial brush up is picking all of this extra dubbing out, and then your brush down is pulling that back down to look more realistic, like all those little legs. Do the same thing on the other side, pick all that dubbing out, and then bring it back to you. Now, the final thing to do is you're going to pull all that dubbing down that you've just picked out, and you're going to trim it to an equal amount, just a little bit longer, so it hangs a little bit past the hook point. That way it looks like all those little legs sticking out on an actual scud. And you can have some stragglers, it's okay. Things are going to tear off and things are going to get messed up as you fish the fly. It's okay. But that is the Hybrid Scud 2.0. I love this fly. Like I said, I'll fish it in this olive, orange, and olive color. This is like my OG. I always go to this fly if none of the other colors are working. I also like the orange. I find myself fishing orange quite a bit, but sometimes this is the color. I always try to incorporate this orange UV. I think that a little bit of flash really helps these flies. You don't want too much, but a little bit will help. I also fish in olive. Olive will work quite well. Pink, both in a lighter pink or a hot pink, can sometimes work. Not always as productive, but sometimes the fish are keying in on that. Or like last trip, I stuck my hands in a clump of weeds at Rocky Ford, and I found the scuds were very dark gray, almost black. So this fly can be tied in a variety of different colors of dubbing, scud back, and thread. I've played around a little bit using a darker thread to add a little bit more emphasis to the segmentation. I'm going to be fishing that here later this week at Rocky Ford to see how the fish react. But this fly, the Hybrid Scud 2.0, is by far my favorite fly to fish at Rocky Ford, and is possibly the most productive fly I fish at Rocky Ford. I love it. Fish it for other things too. I fish it at Dusty Lake for some of those trout. Fish it for sunfish, panfish. They love them. Scuds where it's at. And this is the Scud.
So that's the Hybrid Scud. I love scud fishing. I call it scudding. I don't think there's really anything better than sight fishing to a fish that's keying on a scud. And for some reason, this pattern just matches the hatch, catches a lot of fish. I've caught some of my probably the biggest trout on it. It was about 24-25 inches and about 10 pounds out of Rocky Ford on a Hybrid Scud in the olive and orange that I just tied in a size 14. This fly, I don't know what else to say about it. I love this fly. I tie them all the time. I probably have more scuds in my box than just about any other fly pattern. So, Hybrid Scud is just an awesome pattern. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel right here. And stay tuned for more of these videos coming up. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you learned something.